Well, we are almost done covering the weak verbs in the Ross grammar. With just a couple more chapters to go, so hang in there. You will get through this, and you'll get through it unscathed. Anyhow, we are starting Ross chapter 38, and this is dealing with hollow verbs. You'll notice that in the title here, we have hollow verbs for the title. This is a specific kind of weak verb. They're also known as middle vav and middle yod verbs, two vav, two yod verbs, and this is from Ross chapter 38. Now, Hebrew has a number of verbs whose middle letter is the semi-vowel vav or yod. So we've got vav yod here. Semi-vowel, remember, we learned about the letters vav and yod, which can function as consonants, and sometimes in Hebrew they function as vowels. They form the w and y sound in ancient Hebrew. And those sounds veered often into vowel sounds, even when they were consonants, and that's why they're often referred to as semi-vowels. Since these letters represent vowels, there are really only going to be two consonants in these verb forms that we're looking at, and so these are referred to by some grammarians as biconsonantal verbs. Others, like me, frequently describe them as hollow verbs, and still others as middle vav or middle yod verbs, or as two vav, two yod verbs, or even as R2 vav or R2 yod verbs. In any case, when you see these verbs, one of two things will have occurred. Number one, the semi-vowel vav or yod has elided and so is missing. You won't see it. And so some examples from the Cal Perfect 3MS forms of these verbs are come. So here you only see two consonants, right? Kof and mem. You don't see the middle vav or yod. This means he arose. Sam, he set. Ba, he entered. Two consonants, no middle consonant. So you won't see the typical three consonantal root letters that we're used to. So that's one thing that can happen, is the yod or vav, that's the middle letter, will be missing. And that's why these are called hollow verbs, by the way. It's missing the middle. It's missing the hamburger between the two buns, as it were. And we hate hollow hamburgers, don't we? Anyhow, secondly, the semi-vowel also may have contracted with another vowel and so appears as a mater, marking a historically long vowel. So in the Cal Imperfect 3MS forms of these same verbs, we have yakum, he will arise. Notice my same two consonants, kof and mem, are here, and my prefix yod for the nutty imperfect prefix is here, and inside is a shurik, and there is a vav here, but it is not a consonant vav. This is clearly the mater forming a shurik. Yasim, he will set. Again, here's my two consonants, and in between we see the Keurig yod, historically long vowel. So this yod here is a mater. And then yavo, he will enter. All right? Now, since the original root to vav or yod is missing, Hebrew lexicons are going to use the Cal infinitive construct form as the lexical form, since the middle letter is always visible in the Cal infinitive construct. If we use the Cal perfect as the lexical form, notice you wouldn't know whether these verbs were middle vav or middle yod because the middle letter is completely missing anyway. So in order to know whether the verb is actually a middle vav or a middle yod verb, you're going to look at the Cal infinitive construct. So kum is the infinitive construct and the lexical form. And notice there's a vav in the middle here with that shurik, and so this would tell you that this is actually a two vav verb. Bo has a vav in the middle, so that's a two vav. Seem is going to usually come about as a middle yod verb, although sometimes it's treated like a middle vav verb, and so you may see either of these as the lexical form. So kum is to arise, to rise, to stand up. In the Cal, to come or enter for bo. Seem, to place, put, or set. Muth is middle vav, to die. And bosh is middle vav, and that's to be ashamed. We're going to use these verbs for the rest of our lecture. So here are some representative forms of the these verbs in the cal stem. And what I have to remind you of here is that in the cal, we have differences between verbs that are active or dynamic, verbs that represent an action or an activity, and then verbs that are stative, verbs that indicate a state of being, whether it be an emotional state or a situation. So pakad was active, to appoint, visit. Some stative verbs that we looked at were yachol, to be able, and kaved, to be heavy. And if you remember, one of the significant differences in the form of active verbs in the cal versus stative verbs, it's this theme vowel in the perfect. A-class theme vowel for the active verbs, and typically sere for the stative verbs, and occasionally, not so common, holum for our theme vowel there. Okay? We need to remember that because there are some stative verbs that are hollow, and we're going to see why they have the form that they do. Now let's look real quickly at the cal perfect for our hollow verbs. And again, we're using the 5 verbs that I just went through. So come is a he arose. Notice we're missing our middle letter, so just the 2 consonants. And because my active verbs have an A-class theme vowel, notice here that my theme vowel is A-class as well. So come, he arose. You can say these with me if you want to. Come, and then kama, she arose. Notice I have the typical third feminine singular kamets hey for the cal pattern, the perfect. And then kamta is you man arose. And we're just going to be representative here. I won't go through all the persons, genders, and numbers of the perfect, but we'll give you a representative sampling here. Notice here that I have a short a pathak, instead of the long a kamet. So in the basic uninflected form, I'm going to have long a. When I have vocalic endings, the personal endings that start with vowels, I will retain that long a. So notice with the third common plural, kamu, they arose. I've got that long a because shurik is vocalic. But when I have consonantal endings, I'm going to get the short a. So kamta, you arose. Kamti, I arose. Look over here at the 2MP. Kamtem, y'all arose. And then for the one common plural, kamnu, we arose. Again with that short pathak because I'm adding consonantal endings here. Remember the heavy endings tem and ten pull the stress to the end. And so this is going to be closed and unaccented. And in that situation, it absolutely has to have a short vowel. Here, it's closed but accented. So it's not following the cuss rule, but it does happen to be short here. Okay? Now, the reason ba is in here for he entered, he went in, is that the aleph is a guttural. And so this is a slightly irregular verb. It is a 2-vav verb. Remember, my lexical form is bo with that holum vav here, bo, just like that. So this is a middle vav verb or 2-vav. But when we have the cal perfect, you can't see the 2-vav, right? It's hollow, it's empty. Just the 2 consonants are here. So notice it looks just like kam. Ba, he came, he entered. But the feminine singular form, got to add the comments, hey, ba'a. Notice that I'm trying to keep the accent on root 1 all the way through. I do that in the cal perfect until I get to the heavy endings, tem and ten, and then my accent moves. So ba, ba'a, and then batha. Here's where we see the guttural characteristic happening. Remember, aleph is a lousy closer. Here, the second root letter in kamta is closing the syllable. I have a silent shiva. Here, I would have liked to have closed the syllable with a silent shiva, but the aleph then quiesced, lost its consonantal value, and it went AWOL on us, and so we lose the vowel pointing, and then because the aleph is being treated as if it's not there, I'm preceding this ta ending with a vowel sound, and that means that my dagesh lene that was here is going to go away. So it's batha, you man entered. Bathi, I entered. Again with the long a, right? By the way, these A's are long. They should have been short with a silent shava. When this quiesced, this compensatorily lengthened, okay? That's what we saw there. So bathi, I entered. Ba'u, they entered. Bathem, y'all entered. Banu, we entered. So as you can see, all of the same person, gender, number forms of the perfect are the ones we've already learned. You're not learning anything new here. It's just seeing a biconsonantal verb. So instead of 2 syllables like pakad, we're just getting 1, basically the final syllable. Okay, sam is he placed, put, or set. Okay, so we'll just go with set. He set, like he set something on the table. Sam, he set. Samma, she set. Samta, you set. Samti, I set. Notice we're going from long A's here in the basic form and the one with vocalic endings to the short A when we have consonantal endings. Ta, ta, ti, and so forth. Samu, they set. Samtem is y'all set. Have a little mistake here. That is unaccented. Remember, the heavy ending pulls the stress there. And then samnu is a we set. Now over here on the last 2 columns, I have my stative verbs. These are all active dynamic verbs. Arising, entering, putting, placing something somewhere. These are all actions. Here, these are verbs that indicate more of a state. So, mate is from the verb muth, so it's 2 vav, and bosh is 2 vav, middle vav. Muth is to die or to be dead. Okay, so that's not really an action. It's a state that you enter. So to die. So mate. Notice then kaved had a sere, and mate also being stative has a sere theme vowel here. So this is my stative pattern. So mate, he died. Metha, she died. And then matta. Matta is you died. Notice that I went from the sere to the pathak. And we did this with kaved. Kaved became kavada. And then it became kavadta. Not kavedta, but kavadta. So we see that sere becoming a pathak here. So matta, you died. And then this actually should have been mati. Sorry about that. That should be a Keurig yod. Mati. And what's happened here is the tav of muth and the t of the first common singular, that tav has been written 1 time with the dagesh forte. So mati. Third common plural, methu is they died. Matem, y'all died. And matnu is we died. And then bosh is another stative verb, but notice it's not using the sere stative theme vowel like kaved, but rather the holum theme vowel, bosh, or it can be spelled fully, defective, full, holum vav, like yakol has the holum there, to be able. Yakol. Here, bosh is to be ashamed. To be ashamed. So, bosh, he was ashamed. Bosha, she was ashamed. Notice that we're continuing to stress the first root consonant and its vowel. We have to do that unless we have a heavy ending down here. So not bosha, but bosha. Boshta, you were ashamed. So she was ashamed. Boshta, you were ashamed, man. And then I did the same thing here. That should be a Keurig yod here, not a ta. So boshti, I was ashamed. Boshu, they were ashamed. Notice that holum could be spelled fully or defectively. Boshtem, y'all were ashamed. Notice here that this is a kametz ketuf. That is not a kametz. This is closed and unaccented, and so it has to be short. It's got to follow the cuss rule, okay? Boshtem. And then boshnu. Boshnu is we were ashamed. So those are your cow perfect forms of hollow verbs active and stative.